Welcome, folks. Good evening, good morning. Welcome to today. It's your host with the most, Bart Davidson in downtown New South Wales for MaiaGrazing, talking this evening with Alex and Nick Anderson. While there's a massive East Coast low blowing up in the background for me, which will hopefully keep my antenna on the roof as we get going. Lots to talk about, lots to think about. Loads to think about, in fact. So, as ever, I'm privileged just to be able to talk to the folks on the other side of the computer. I spend my life looking at the numbers in Maia these days. I've been a farmer in a past life. I've been a consultant in various other life forms, but my job now is really just to try and understand grazing as well as I possibly can, and I love it. And that's why I love talking to people like Nick and Alex about what they do and how they do what they do and why they do what they do. So, Nick, Alex, how are you?
Good, thanks, Bart.
Welcome to a wonderful, relaxing Tuesday eve. Tell me, whereabouts are you? And let's share with the folks at home, around the world, wherever they may be. Where are you right now, and what does the 100 k's around you look like?
So we're at home, which is basically just west of Malali, so about 400 k's off the coast and about 200 k's south of the Queensland border. It's sort of we're mixed country, so most of the places to the east of us are cropping, mostly flat, and then to the west of us it starts to get a bit hilly before flattening out again until West Australia. Yeah, so we're roughly 625, 650 mils average rainfall. We run a mixed place here, 450 acres, about
4,500 acres.
Sorry, yeah, 4,500 acres. We're about 1/3 of the area's cropping flats, and then 2/3 is sort of rolling hills to something a little bit steeper. Basalt, black basalt, and red soils.
Okay, and tell me, how did you find your way to where you are? You know, what your place has been in the family for some period of time.
Yeah, so it's my family's place originally. My great-grandfather owned it, so it's been in the family for a little over 100 years. Sort of split off generation to generation, smaller and smaller. Alex and I got married. I've been back here for almost 7 years, and Alex and I got married 4 years ago, getting up to 4 years ago now, and that's about when she came back in. She came into the farm about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
We took over management nominally from my parents 2 years ago, really. Before that, I was running the cropping, but we took over the whole thing about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Okay, 4 years down, a long way to go.
Yeah. I've got three sisters as well who aren't in the business, but we're just in succession with them at the moment. So
Sure.
Probably,
yep, and not an uncommon position to be in. Sure. Okay. Well, look, how's tonight going to roll, folks, or this morning, wherever we might be in this northern or southern hemisphere? Really, I thought we'd get to know the Andersons, and I'll give you my take on what I think makes them tick, and then we'll just walk through some of why they're on the show tonight, and then we'll have a quick look at a video which someone's come up with, which gives a bit of texture and colour to how Nick and Alex do what they do, and then we'll walk through some slides and some conversation around a bit of the detail, and then a bit of Q&A, and then maybe it's a beer, and then maybe it's a long sleep, because it had a 3 in front of it when I got up this morning. So I'm pretty keen to have a really good, relaxing conversation here, and then see where we go. But it probably won't be a long night. So I'll give you my take. I for the folks sitting in the tractor right now, I think the reason I'm talking to Nick and Alex at the moment is because they're the kind of things. They're a young couple, full of vigor, full of energy, they haven't lost enough skin yet compared to where some of us have been, and end up thinking about what we could have done better in life. And they're very open to change. They're very motivated to improve themselves, and that stands out. That certainly caught my attention back late last year, early this year, in terms of what they're trying to do. And whilst there's a lot of people in similar situations to Nick and Alex, I think the thing that really struck me is just how determined they are to take things on and to confront change, and have a philosophy that underlies that, rather than all the noise that fills our life and our lives these days. So, Nick and Alex, I'd ask you, why are we talking this evening? You're a pair of cockies sitting out in central New South Wales. There's a bit of detail that we'll get into shortly enough, but what makes you tick?
I don't know, Bart. I think that was a very kind introduction, thank you. But I think that you're probably right in that, like, we're young enough and we haven't been burnt enough times, I suppose, that we're still really keen, and we're still got a lot of enthusiasm, and we still really believe we can make it work here. And like Nick was saying, he's got 3 sisters that we have to pay out essentially to be able to stay here, and we've got a young family, and for us it's all or nothing. And so if we really didn't believe that the path we're going down was going to get us to our end goal, then we certainly wouldn't be doing it. But it's also something that I think we've got more and more passionate and more excited about what we're doing over the last few years, despite the seasons and things. I think we've learnt so much, and we're actually more confident in what we know, and very much what we don't know now, than we were 2 or 3 years ago before the drought started. So I don't know, do you have anything to add to that?
Not really. I think probably we've sort of, I guess we've really, the biggest change we've probably made recently anyway has been trying to sit back, observe, and then use those observations to make decisions.
Isn't that great? Do you find that has come slowly, or is that something that you've always tried to do?
I think that's something that we had pointed out to us, that probably particularly RCS and holistic management, they sort of started us, or gave us the tools to start asking the questions. And I think it's something that, we're busy as ever at the moment, but through the drought, when we had a bit more time, you could spend time just digging up what plants you could find, or looking at what animals were actually achieving when they were in the paddock, or what they were destroying, depending on.
And I think it's sort of when we find ourselves just getting caught up in the daily tasks of managing a place, and we start getting a little bit too in our heads or something. It's normally one of us will be like, we need to stop, sit back, and reevaluate what we're doing, and whether it's something that's going to get us towards our end goal, or whether we're just creating work for ourselves.
Excellent. Look, there's 2 things that stand out there, right? From the old wizened fellow sitting in the corner here. Number one, I think having a partnership, whether it's husband and wife, whatever form it might take, but having a partnership where there's a balance between the reflective thinking and the activity, and the ability to step back, the ability to go hard, is something that you 2 have that makes a massive difference. And secondly, the self-awareness to be able to step back from the machine, which really all of us in agriculture love to be entwined in. We love to be busy, and we love to be chasing the moving parts, rather than stopping and being scared by some of the things that we reflect on. So, or motivated and encouraged by some of the things that we reflect on. So I think that's a really great combination. It doesn't necessarily make it easy, but it definitely is an attribute, I think, that's fantastic to see, because it's critical to being able to make the big decisions, right? And that's some of what we're going to talk through this evening. So let's go into that. How about we throw our little moving parts video together here, David, and just give a little bit of colour and movement to what Nick and Alex do, and then we'll step through some of the detail.
Newstead was traditionally a Hereford breeding operation. We bred about 350 cows a year with the idea to turn off 450 kilo Hereford steers. It's 1,800 hectares on the western edge of the Liverpool Plains, just to the west of Malali. My wife and I came home and took over management approximately 2.5 years ago, and things got really dry. So since then we've transitioned to a trading operation just to build a lot more flexibility and resilience into our operation.
Our main goal for this place is to regenerate it to the best ability that we can. So we want to increase the soil health, we want to increase ground cover, we want to increase biodiversity.
We did Grazing for Profit in January 2017. And they talk about a grazing chart. Everyone kept saying, you got to run your grazing charts, you got to run your grazing charts. And we were looking at hand recorded ones, and it was just a pain in the bum, to be honest.
When the switch finally flicked for us, we signed up for Maia.
Maia for us is an integral part of our time planned grazing. So it's part of our planning of the rotation, as well as part of the monitoring of how we're going and if we need to speed up or slow down. And as part of that planned grazing program that we've got running, even through this drought, we've seen certain paddocks that we've been really careful with. We've seen an increase in diversity, an increase in ground cover, an increase in infiltration rate of water, and just basically more efficient use of the resources that we've got.
We also find that it's a really effective way to communicate what we're trying to say to other interested parties. So for example, Nick's parents, we can sit down with them and show them on a screen like where our rainfall's mapping and what our yield data from moves looks like. And that's a really powerful and quite a professional way to explain it to other people involved in the business. When this drought really kicked off for us in sort of mid-2017, we actually hadn't signed up to Maia yet. And we found that we were moving stock into paddocks that we knew weren't suitable for a graze, and our ground cover was depleting rapidly, our stock was starting to slip. So we made the decision to destock probably a good 6 months after we really should have. We signed up for Maia not long after that, and we started being able to track our stocking rate and match it to our carrying capacity, which at that time we were in quite a big deficit. So definitely during this drought, MaiaGrazing has been a really essential tool to helping us match our stocking rate to our carrying capacity, making sure we're not pushing the country too hard.
Right now we have 0 head on the place. We've obviously, as you can see over my shoulder, received fairly significant rain. So we're now using Maia and the forecasting tool to put a little bit more confidence around the numbers that we can purchase. If we think we can carry 200 or 300 head, we go in, we put the numbers in and the forecast in and put in what potential rain we have, and it shows us that we're not actually going to go over the theoretical feed that we can grow, or it shows us that we are, and we have to come back and adjust those numbers.
It helps us make the best decision on the day with the available data that we have.
Because we've been so destocked, we haven't probably lent on it as hard as we will once we really get firing again here with the rain. But so for us at the moment, it's been a fantastic rain recording tool, but the main reason I would recommend it to someone else is it's just a simple way of doing grazing charts. It's just simple. The other thing we found too, if we've got our numbers about right according to Maia, is the animal performance is magnificent. And we've been in the middle of the drought and still just stacking kilos on things that we've been bringing in. By matching our stocking rate to our carrying capacity, we've been able to avoid hand feeding through this drought. And we did a rough estimation about 2 weeks ago that we'd actually be up to about $1 million in feed by now if we hadn't gone that way. So that's a massive saving.
I think one of the reasons that we really like Maia for our business is that it's a tool that very strongly supports our vision and goals for the business, and that is grass and land management. And so I think that's why everyone on the team at Maia that we speak to kind of really supports those goals personally, and so I think that's why it's become such a useful tool for our business.
It puts a lot more confidence around what we're doing, and that's money, really.
just talking through the last couple of years for you guys, and we'll put those slides up now and just talk through the experience that you've had and has been shared by so many people in Eastern Australia and broader areas as well, for that matter. So I'm just interested to talk through here. Okay, so there's Newstead on the, well, you guys are on the Liverpool Plains.
Yeah,
We're right on the western edge of it.
yeah. So this, yeah, that's
It's literally like the last cropping of the Liverpool Plains, and then it kind of turns into Pilliga scrub, basically.
Yeah.
pretty well, yeah.
Yeah.
So a bit of a mixture of country. You're on the edge of the Pilliga, lighter country, and you've got some lovely black soils going through, and no doubt some basalts as well.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's tick over it and just think about the last few years then, folks. So let's just step back a bit. You're a young couple. You've taken on the farm, as you said. It's been an intergenerational change there, as I understand. You've taken on the role of management, taking on the role of running the place in 2017 or thereabouts. Just talk us through that changeover and how that has evolved, and then we'll get into the seasons and some of the grazing aspects.
So we sort of, obviously back in at the start of this rainfall, we were at these charts. We were running a full-time breeding herd, basically 350 breeders, turning off sort of 400 plus kilo steers was the goal. At the sort of round when it stopped raining, we were nominally managing, but really it was my parents' sort of transition time between my parents and us, which left us in a bit of a dangerous space. We're sort of a bit leaderless, I suppose you could say. A lot of different ideas and no real direction. Then it started to get dry, as you can see. When we were talking to you this afternoon, Bart, we said we got down to 200 mils. It's under the box there. We got down to 200 mils pretty well exactly. And I said that it was a bit of a nuisance to me because I just want to get under 200, even 199, but we never quite got that low. We sort of, when things really started drying off, we were in that dangerous place where we didn't really have a clear leader, if you like. So we were just plodding along doing what we'd always done. And things got really drastic, and it was almost a blessing in disguise because we had to either jump in or go broke, essentially. It might be a bit over dramatic, but yeah.
Before we talk about going broke, so there's a big couple of years there. Let's just with the context of the rainfall, and then we'll go into a couple of the steps there. But 2018 obviously got pretty dry. So what are those numbers in front of us? That I take it that's a rolling rainfall on the blue line, monthly rainfall on the bar chart. There's a few zeros, a few donuts. We're talking about I think you mentioned a 600 odd mil rainfall, long-term average.
25, I think it is, yeah.
Long-term average rainfall. So yeah, having a 4 in the front of it, yes, it's dry. Having a 3 in front of it, that's getting really pretty dry. And then 2019, so 2018 was pretty tough going, and then 2019 really tested some new lows with rolling 12-month rainfalls of, what did you say? You were getting down to
200 flat net.
That's the lowest.
Yeah, right. So pretty tough going. You're running at around a third of long-term average. You're running at about a third of where long-term calibration has been for how things should be around here. And so obviously there's been some recalibration over that period of time, and then you're wondering how bad it can get, and ultimately it does get pretty bad because, doesn't matter which, it's 600, and that's going to be tough going. So okay, so you've progressed through that period of time, and then obviously it's dry, and obviously it's getting tough going. Just back to the business. So you took on management in 2017, a bit of quid pro quo between the partners and that generational change. What were some of the things you were working through then? What was on your radar for how you were doing what you were doing? from a business point of view?
The overarching thing was definitely succession.
Yeah.
We had, we always knew it was going to be like a big mountain that was going to get put in front of us no matter what happened. Just being one of four, the place had never really been run. My parents had an off-farm income. The farm always took care of itself, but it never really provided. And so we really had to.
Well, I guess it was when we started Succession, and they basically put a figure on the table for us and were like, can you provide this? This is what the business needs to do for Nick's sisters over X amount of years. And at the time, we'd sort of just taken over management, and we both went out of the room and we were like, we have no idea.
Yeah.
And not the faintest idea whether like the business is capable of doing that or not. And so they kind of gave us 12 months to go away, get our heads around the books, which we weren't doing at the time and kind of didn't really exist at the time.
No.
And so those 12 months were sort of 2018. And so we really had to pull our finger out and figure out if the existing business could do what we needed it to. And we sort of felt that it had a few holes in it. And then, by mid 2018, we were also completely destocked, and it actually presented us with huge opportunities to go and reinvent the business basically from the ground up in a way that we believed that we could meet our succession goals and provide an income for us to live on.
I think as well, the funniest thing, like reflecting back on it, the biggest change factor for us was we went from having nothing to having a defined goal, and that was, the succession target. And it was like, we didn't know where it was that we wanted to go or what it was that we wanted to achieve. And then it was like, bang, you guys have got to do this for your sisters. Go out and sort out how to do it. And then we got smacked.
I'm interested.
So basically we went and did a few courses sort of in that lull period when we were destocked. One of them was KLR. And that was very exciting for us because we saw a real opportunity there going from breeding to trading. And I think everyone that we talk to thinks that we're saying everyone has to go trading, which is certainly not the case. But for us, the way our business was structured and the things that it was lacking at the time, like turnover, cash flow, and also the way that we wanted to manage our grazing, trading was sort of something that really fit our goals for the business, both sort of in terms of our pasture management and financially, I suppose.
Sure. KLR, GFP, grazing for profit. Were they turning points? Were they just another walk down the street on a Sunday afternoon? Any reflections on those exercises?
Yeah, look, I don't think any particular one was an about face, but they were certainly turning points. Yeah, I think my parents were managing sort of a basic rotational grazing system and doing reasonably well with it. But for us, though, like the GFP particularly was the thing that started it for us, and then KLR was another tool in the toolbox to achieve what we were really aiming for with that succession goal that we talked about.
Okay, so GFP was about the grazing aspects and getting a sense of the business, and the KLR was, I'm guessing, was about movement of the enterprise mix from a long-standing breeding emphasis to taking on a model that, not just allowed for trading, but that went with trading.
Yeah. Well, it not only did it allow for trading, it actually it became then a tool for us to better manage our grazing as well. So that's where, again, reiterating what Moo said before, like a lot of people think when we talk that all we're doing is telling everyone to go trading. It's not the case at all, but for us it really fit what we're trying to achieve. So that's why we went that way.
Okay, so let's just flick over the next slide there now. So we've had a pretty dry management change in 17, going into a pretty drier time in 2018, and then 2019 really just capped it off. So we're looking here at the transition of a dry time into stocking rate, where the blue line here in front of us. Well, you guys talk us through it. What are you seeing here? You know, this is your lived experience for the last couple of years.
Probably the first thing, there's two logistical things to say. The first sort of few months, there's data building, so data entry.
When we first got Maia.
So that climb was really sitting up there already rather than climbing.
Actually, we should just set some context, right? We should just set some context. Otherwise, I'll get flack later on for not just looking at what we're actually looking at here, right? So we're looking at a chart of your lived experience, rolling rainfall, and then the conversion of stocking rate relative to that rolling rainfall over the last couple of years. And yeah, as you say, the first few months there are the ramp up period as you got going in Maia to build the data up. Okay, so take us forward.
And then the black line is the benchmark, as most Maia users would know. But that was originally set a lot higher, which is why we bounced around up so high for so long before we apparently got our act together and dropped it.
We more than halved it.
Yeah, we more than halved it. So, and that was as a result of the drought as well, because we're on black soils.
Sure.
But we basically, around sort of, it must have been November 17, that was when we started really severely cutting into our breeding herd rather than just the growing stock. And we'd sort of fought to get that line down, and we were just fighting a rainfall that was dropping and pushing our line even higher. But I think probably there's a lot of people who'd be pretty familiar with that experience over the last few years. And eventually we got, you can kind of see around about September, November 18 there, where it started raining again. We started to do this. That's when we basically started bringing trades in and out on the opportunity that we'd had by bringing that stocking rate down. It was still a lot higher than where we've now set our benchmark, but that, we were trading then within opportunities that we're creating.
Sure, and so just for folks that aren't used to the chart, we're looking there at rolling rainfall on the blue line, monthly rainfall on the bar chart, and the green line is the animal units, LSU days per hectare per 100 mil, or the DC days per hectare per 100 mil, whichever livestock units we're in, but it's the stocking rate per unit of rainfall on a rolling basis. So, our conversion of rainfall into grass over time, and there's nowhere to hide when we're overstocked, and then we're coming back towards carrying capacity. And carrying capacity is a nominal concept, and it's really about what our country can provide and demonstrably convert moisture into on an ongoing sustainable basis. And in a very short explanation, but it's a feast of learning going on there, and that chart doesn't do justice to the extreme levels of learning that you pair have been through and your family, because within those numbers there is an inherent amount of angst and stress and learning and also good times and great things as well. But ultimately, the task here is to understand what our country can do, how it performs, how it reacts to the seasons as they change, able to be on the front foot with that. And what you're saying is that, okay, we will run the business model so that the enterprise allows us to have a bit more flexibility and to come and go and to not be quite as locked in as we might have been before in terms of the liquidity of stock or all of the worldviews that we have about the stock that we're carrying. So just talk us through that, because obviously you understate it now, but 2018, early 19, very, very dry, out of the century. What was how are things mentally? How are you feeling, and what changed over that period of time for you?
I think once we actually made that decision and started really heavily destocking sort of towards mid on the back end of 2018, and then we went and did a few of these courses, and we actually got really excited by the potential opportunities that were out there, and we just got, if anything, really impatient for them to turn up. We were constantly looking for them, and they did come. I mean, our rainfall didn't really change much, but by having less animals on the place, the rain that we got was able to grow a little bit of grass, and so we were able to bring some like skinny cows in and things. And it might have only been 50 head, but we were able to do something profitable with 50 head rather than the path we were going down. We were losing money on, 700 head. So I think we sort of kind of got into our rhythm really when it was really dry, of just looking for those little opportunities and being happy with whatever came our way. And it was actually when it really started raining again, sort of earlier this year, that I think the real challenges popped up for us, because it was the first time we were actually completely destocked in about December last year, January this year, and it just bucketed down like it did for a lot of people. And we all of a sudden had so much feed and no stock, and it wasn't a situation that we had expected or planned for. We'd sort of thought that we'd sort of gradually work our way out of it, but so yeah, there were a lot of hard decisions made at that time actually that
it was great because it was opportunity, but it's still, I think just looking at that chart now until basically the end of February, it felt like it was going to stop raining again.
Sure.
So we were sort of, holding back a bit and just waiting to see what it was that we were actually going to grow from the rain, and if it was going to stop, and if the market was going to do. We didn't, the market. Everyone knows the market was going nuts. We didn't jump in quite as early because we didn't get the early break that really started to push the market. So we weren't in, and we sat out and then brought in some adjustment stock just to let the market settle and get cash flow rolling, and actually get some animal impact and things like that going as well.
Let's just flick over the next slide, and we'll start to wrap up. But just let's just get a sense of it. So we've been through some pretty tight times there. You've re-engineered the enterprise mix. You've re-engineered how you think about the way that you do what you do. So the grazing and management aspects have developed. Just talk us through a couple of these slides, and then we'll be pulling up for the evening, and just tell us what now looks like for you, and how it's currently unrolling.
So these two, I'm not 100% sure if that's the same cow, but we only bought, I think it was 16 Santas, and they were all within about 20 kilos of each other when they landed, and they were all pretty well within 20 kilos of each other when they left. So that's as good as being the same cow. But this was the first real trade we really did, and it was a real proof of concept moment for us. So this was, as it says, around middle of July through to, I think we wrapped that one up in November. That trade might have just pushed into December, some of them, but it was a real proof of concept for us because we showed that we could do it. If you look at our rolling rainfall, I don't know what it was. I think it was around about 280 or something, but you probably want to fact check that at this time. But we brought skinny, obviously, as you can see, we brought skinny animals on and had them perform through the roof by keeping the stock numbers under the cane capacity. All in what was at the time got worse, but at the time it was the worst season we'd ever been through. So this is a real proof of concept for us, as I said, and it gave us a lot more confidence to go out and try some new things. It's a bit hard to cover overheads on 150 cows on a business of this size, but they were pretty profitable as a gross margin thing, those cows. And we got really enthusiastic at this point, and we started actually wondering if cropping was even for us, because we could see that the potential for the money in this was huge.
Sure.
Which I think probably,
Okay, so great. So the margin, I think what you're explaining there is that the margin, even with the lower stocking rate, and probably because of the lower stocking rate, and being in control of the recovery period, in control of the grass essentially, and the enterprise, your gross margin went up by the sounds of it. Yeah.
I mean, that cow on the left, she's in the yards there. That wasn't what it looked like everywhere underneath her feet there. But I think, I don't really want to say this, but I think the gross profit on them was nearly $650 a head on a 2.5-month trade.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean,
you really jumped in with both feet and got some confidence with that. Okay. So, in the interest of not having another one of these long videos that people won't want to sit through, let's just start to wrap it up then. So, you've had a big change there. You've developed your business. You're growing the family. I really get the sense that you're positive again about what you can do and how you can do it. And the one thing I've picked up from you is that it's not based on the knickknacks, the decimal points, chasing this shiny penny or that shiny penny. It's actually about the principles, and it's been hard to really pin that down tonight because there's so much within that, between the grazing management, the trading management, the people management, and the tools that you use to achieve that. Is there anything what would you comment on there? I mean, yes, it makes a difference, you being you and the way that you think about how you do what you do and what makes a difference to those decisions. What is it that's really pinning it all together for you? What are the tools that you use? How do you structure what you do? Just let's give some.
I think probably first and foremost, our business is built around essentially a belief that healthy land provides the most opportunity for a vibrant business on top. And that comes back to the principles, doesn't it? Like, it doesn't really matter whether you're trading, breeding, cropping, whatever. If you get your land healthy, your opportunities to run a successful business on top become much, much greater. And I think a lot of the courses that we've done, that's the central theme of them.
That, and I would say also really pinpointing what our financial goals for the business are, and not only financial goals, but our lifestyle goals as well, and where we want to be in sort of 20 or 50 years times, and where Nick's parents want to be. And we have a weekly management meeting now, and at the start of every meeting we read out the goals for the business, and it just keeps bringing us back to sort of what's the most important thing to be worried about, and what's the most important thing to focus on, and also helps us for things like CapEx planning and stuff, because it's so easy to get bogged down in I don't know, fixing a shed or buying a new side-by-side or something, when we're we know what our weakest links are in the business, and we know by fixing them we're going to create this much opportunity. And so we have a purpose now and a vision for where we're going, and I think that's been a really big factor in helping us down this path.
Fantastic. Look, and we could explore that forever this evening. We're going to pull it up there and start looking at some questions from the audience, and just to start to wrap up. But yeah, thank you very much for that explanation. I think what I'm hearing from you there is that, and what I've observed in what you guys are doing, is that you've gone from being busy in the activity of running a farm, which so many and all of us have done at different times, to actually running a business that happens to be a farm, and making a pretty good fist of it, because that the principles underlying the management of that business being the key to that, and knowing which tools to pull out of the kit at the right time. So thank you for sharing with us this evening. It's never long enough to really pull it all apart and put it back together, but it's some great insight to hear from you about how you think about what you do, and how you feel about what you do, and some of the experience that you've garnered from that on your journey. There's a small handful of questions here. We'll just throw a couple up there, and I'll let some of the folks who have been watching and are interested, and I won't get through all of them, I don't think, but let's just have a quick look at a couple of them, and I'll let you explain the first one. So rolling rainfall, Nick or Alex, what does it mean to you? Because it's a number that it's a term that we throw out there a lot in MaiaGrazing. What does it mean to you?
What does it mean, or what is it?
What does it mean?
What is it? What
does it mean to us? It's an interesting one, because it's indicative of how much grass you're going to grow at the time, but it's not an absolute number. It's hugely important in watching it, but if you get 100 mils in a storm and you haven't had any rain for months, it doesn't actually grow much grass. So you've still got to prove things, but it's amazing how well, once you get those numbers sort of figured out, it's amazing how well your rolling rainfall does actually track what the paddock looks like.
Right,
But it also means like the amount of rain that we've had in the year leading up to today, basically, is what it means.
Is that what that's what you're looking for?
Teco on the left will tell us that it's the rainfall up to this day a year ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's the rainfall up to today from this day a year ago. It's the rolling 12-month annual rainfall. And it's a great answer from Nick there about the broader picture of what that means, because it's about the seasonality. Is your season early? Is the season late? Are we ahead or behind? And taking into account the fact that seasons are not ever average, but really it's the total rainfall that we've accrued, from which we can turn into grass and from which we can then harvest that grass, and then go and look at our stocking rate relative to that, which is where we talk about the stock days per hectare per 100 mil. So the rolling rainfall is certainly pretty critical, but more important is the actual stocking rate relative to that rolling rainfall. Okay, so another couple of quick questions, and you'll notice that my question answering taking is not the greatest skill in the world, but let's just have a quick look at another one here. What are the key indicators of healthy land, from Bill in, I'm going to say Canberra? Healthy indicators, the key indicators of healthy land, and how are you measuring that, Nick and Alex?
I think the first thing you've got to do for progress is ground cover. Doesn't matter what it is, it's got to be ground cover. And sort of, when we talk to someone who's been a mentor for us, that's what he always says, is you've got to be monitoring the earliest indicators. So rather than, I think carbon's obviously one that everyone likes to talk about, but the thing with carbon is if you've got bare ground today, your carbon's not going to be dropping tomorrow. It'll take a while. So I think when you look for an indicator, it's important to look for something that you can see today and see changing today, rather than something that's going to change 12 months down the track.
Excellent. Yeah.
Other indicators are water quality, runoff, erosion or lack of. But I think probably for us, the number one is definitely ground cover.
Yeah, particularly after the drought, we're happy with anything that wants to grow anywhere at the moment. We let it grow. And
from then it's sort of, you start to move into the succession of your species that you've got, and the diversity.
What's the lever that you pull to drive ground cover? Just for folks that are trying to pick up on some of the basics here.
Animal management.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So we very carefully control the time that animals are grazing a certain area, and also in that we very carefully control the amount of recovery that paddock has as well.
And the density.
And the density. So we've been able to structure the business in a way that we, at the moment, and hopefully for most of the time, we have one mob. We try and have one large mob in a fairly dense area. And they might be there maybe a day, 2 days. Some bigger paddocks, there might be 3 or 4 days. And then we move them out, and we change our recovery period depending on whether it's a growing or non-growing season. So at the moment, it's not really growing much. So all our paddocks are getting a minimum of sort of 120, 140 day rest before they come back to those paddocks again.
Yep, fantastic. I had a look at some of your recovery periods. They're certainly at the upper end of the average we'd like to see, so that's fantastic. One of those key principles that you'll pick up at Grazing for Profit, maximum impact for the least amount of time. Animal density.
I think, sorry, I'll just jump. The biggest revealing thing for us was when we were told, basically, but realised that actually overgrazing is a factor of time, not numbers.
Yeah.
Time and space. That's what it's all about. Okay, another quick question. What metric do you look at to help make the decision to destock? X months drop in rolling rainfall or otherwise? What have we got there? That's from David. In somewhere great and broad, I'm not sure where. So just help people understand what that means to you.
We track SDHs per 100 mil per hectare.
Top days per hectare per 100 mil, which could be at DC days, it could be LSU days, it could be animal units, it could be
Yeah.
kilos.
And we are using that basic MaiaGrazing chart where we try and keep it under the benchmark. It's taken us a little while to set our benchmark where we're comfortable at.
Sure.
But the other thing too, we do a fair bit of in the paddock truthing. And
Sure.
the biggest, as funny as it sounds, we've got all these tools and all these things, but if you start to feel uneasy about it, that's pretty well when you need to be thinking about selling.
Okay. Very good. Right. Look, I think we could talk all night. And it's not just the fact that there's a beer in the fridge that I'm looking to wind up here. I think that, we've really enjoyed your reflections, and we'll have to do this again because there's no end of questions here that we could work through. I think there's a good balance there of principle and detail, but as ever, it's about the people driving the machine. It's about the principles that underlie that, and then the application of that into what becomes your philosophy about how you do what you do. And power on, Nick and Alex, because you've got a lot of years ahead of you to be doing it and finesse it and refine it and make it your master craft. So good luck with that. We'll keep in touch. I'm really sure that a lot of the feedback that we've got here tells us that people are loving your perspectives on how you do what you do, and variations on how they do what they do. So thank you for your input and your experience tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
No,
Mark.
thank you very much.
And we'll wrap up there. And look, folks, we'll do this again, and there'll be a little survey and more information if you want to hang around after this, just to wrap things up. And we will endeavour, I promise, to talk to everybody about the questions that you raised here that we couldn't get through in the current age of instant gratification. We just won't take ourselves past 45 minutes because it just doesn't work. So, folks, hooray for Hollywood. Good evening. Good luck. And may you do well in your grazing endeavours. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks. Bye.